Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Backer. Welcome to Write Better Stories. Unfortunately, neither of my birds will be joining me today because they were too noisy on the previous takes of this video. However, they are going to be in future videos because I'm currently updating my equipment and I'm going to start editing these bad boys. So look forward to that in the future. Today I'm going to talk about three different things: the concept of originality and why it's bad, 2, the elevator pitch, and 3, exercises that you can do at home to help you write better stories. So, first things first, why originality is bad. Obviously, I'm phrasing this provocatively in order to prove a point, so let me tell you specifically what I mean. Has anyone ever asked you about your story before, or maybe you were just thinking of your own story and you thought it was just so interesting and so different it couldn't be put into a box? Now, before I completely tear down that concept, I want to say, to a certain extent, this is a good thing. You do want to be taking chances, making experiments, sort of coloring outside of the lines. I don't want to stop anybody from doing this. However, if your story is so original that it can't even be summed up into just a few words to tell you what it's about, this could be a bad thing. And if you feel like you identify with that description, then there's two possibilities. One, maybe this really is the most next level story that just would be impossible to describe simply and clearly, because you're just such a genius. And you can probably tell, I don't think it's very realistic that that's what it is. Now, I'm sure your story is very good. I'm sure that you are a brilliant writer. And again, I don't want to stop you from making big, crazy, original choices. However, more often than not, if you feel like your story is so original and so different and so complex, this could actually be an indication that you have not made enough concrete decisions about the arc of your story, about the central investigation of what your story is supposed to be. And if you're into more experimental, sprawling storytelling, again, this maybe is exactly you achieving your intentions. So I'm not going to try to detract you from that too much. However, I've noticed with myself and with different stories in process that I've helped other people with that sometimes this concept of originality and complexity and walking off the beaten path can just be a sign that your story is sort of a mess that needs some more work in the editing process in order to clarify everything. And so this leads us into the second thing that I'm going to talk about, the concept of an elevator pitch. Now, I'm going to sort of talk about the elevator pitch very similarly to the concept of a logline, and I'll describe both of those in a moment. However, I want to frame my investigation of both of these things a little bit differently, because usually when people think of an elevator pitch, they think of coming up with just a quick pitch of their story, just in case they ever had to very quickly sum it up. And I think that the scene that is built by the concept of an elevator pitch is that, oh, you only have 30 seconds in this elevator with a big producer who might give you millions of dollars for your story, so you just got to vomit it out really quickly before he goes to his office or something like that. I think that this is actually a bad way to frame the concept of an elevator pitch, because you shouldn't be coming up with a quick way to convey or communicate your story to somebody just because you have to. This is actually sort of a necessary part of just the story writing process. What is the bare bones of your story? What is the absolute essence of your story? Not just to communicate it if you had to, but just so that you can sort of at a glance abstract your story to just one fundamental element. Now, again, I can hear people already, or I'm preempting people being like, yeah, but my story has all these kind of twists and turns and it's very complex. And again, I don't think you have to sacrifice any of that. However, if your story is so complex and so original that you can't generate that one elevator pitch, that one little line that sums everything up, this could be a bad thing. And it could mean that you haven't made enough concrete decisions about your story, or maybe you've made too many decisions about your story. Maybe you've created a protagonist and a story that is somebody about avenging their father's death, solving their gambling problem, descending into alcohol, winning the girl of their dreams. You know, the more of these that you add, the more it's just going to turn into this mess. And unless you have 700 to 1,000 pages in your book or a 4 or 5 hour movie, you're probably not going to be able to really give all of those the attention that they deserve. So, where the concept of the elevator pitch and the logline sort of overlap, in my opinion, is that it forces you to come up with just a single sentence as to what your story is about. And so now I'm going to move on to the exercises that you can apply both to your story, but then also to any movie or any story that you've ever consumed before. So, let's see. So when you're creating a logline, the format can be pretty loose in terms of how you're structuring your sentence as to what your story is going to be about, but I'm going to give you a format just in case you need a little bit of help with that. The format that I'm going to give you is going to have some blanks in it, and then I'll give some examples so that there is no confusion as to what I mean by this. But the format can be like this. When a blank character is confronted with blank, they have to go blank. Boom. That's as simple as it has to be. Now, it's very simple to say like this in the abstract, but when it comes to actually coming up with a workable logline or elevator pitch for your movie, this is going to take a little bit more work than that. However, I don't want anyone at home to be sitting and racking their brain for hours and hours trying to come up with the best one logline. Actually, the exercise that I think that you can do is set the timer for 20 minutes and try to come up with as many loglines for your story as possible. There's a good chance that if your story is in process right now, there might not be any one logline that even applies to it right now. And in fact, maybe after you come up with a couple loglines, you'll see that 2 or 3 of them apply to your story more perfectly than the other ones do. And then going forward, this can be a good focus for you to, or sort of a test to see whether your future scenes or scenes that you're not really sure about even fit in your story or not. And so that's the first exercise I want you to do, is just make a big list of these loglines. Don't be precious about them. Just try to jot down as many as you can. Again, that format is when a character, sometimes this character has a description, so it's like when a character, in the case of White Men Can't Jump, when a character with a gambling problem meets another basketball hustler out on Venice Beach, they team up in order to hustle, and the main character has to confront their gambling issue. This was wordy. I just kind of did this one off the top of my head, but I hope that example is good for you and usable in some way. Now, another exercise that I think you can do is take a look at some of your favorite movies, your favorite books, your favorite TV shows, and try to just come up with a logline based on what you've seen. This doesn't necessarily have to be like what's on the description on the back of the movie or on the back of the book. Just like what you've taken from these stories that you're consuming, and seeing if you could maybe come up with an elevator pitch or a logline to quickly summarize it. Now, I think this could be especially helpful if you try to do this for a very, very big, sprawling narrative with a lot of installments, maybe a book series or a very crazy, complex novel. And so, for example, let's take Gravity's Rainbow. This is classically considered a very, very complex novel that breaks all these conventions, very experimental, a lot of different plot threads that are being woven together. However, this more than 700-page book, you could argue, is about a guy trying to find a rocket. This isn't even as long as a traditional logline, as I was saying. However, boiled down to its basic essence, Gravity's Rainbow is about a guy trying to find a rocket. Okay? So you could imagine if you were writing this story or trying to decide which scenes fit or not, you could take this description, a guy trying to find a rocket, and then hold all the scenes next to it that you've written and be like, is this really leading the audience toward this investigation of this guy trying to find a rocket? If it is, cool, we can keep it. If not, maybe it's a scene that we can cut. There you go. Now let's take maybe a more familiar example, the Harry Potter series. There are, what, 7 installments? Aren't there more books now? I don't know. I haven't kept up with it. But the basic 7 Harry Potter stories, you could argue, are about a kid who becomes a wizard who then has to practice magic in order to defeat Voldemort. You know, obviously there are many characters in this. There's a lot of different smaller subplots and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's all sort of leading to Harry's big battle with Voldemort at the end of the 7th book. So I hope that this has been helpful to everybody. I'm going to try to keep this under 10 minutes today. So just to review everything, originality, don't let it be a crutch for yourself or a way to avoid actually coming up with a clear, coherent story. It can still be experimental, it can still be off the beaten path and crazy, but you do want someone to actually take something from your story. So if your story is too complex to have anyone be able to hang on to anything or even convey what this story is about. It might be too original and you need to make some more clear decisions about your story, which you can do by generating a simple elevator pitch or logline for your story. And if that is confusing to you, then you can do this by creating exercises. By doing the exercises that I mentioned, which are take that format of the logline when a certain kind of character confronts or is confronted by a happening, a plot point, a call to action, then this certain type of character has to go on this journey in order to do this thing. There you go. I'll also put that little format inside of the description of this video because I know me saying it might not be as easy as me just showing it to you. And then lastly, take this exercise and apply it to your favorite books and movies, and hopefully all of this will help you write better stories. Thank you very much. Goodbye.